Hollywood and mainstream cinema industries like it have always, for the longest time, or for as far as we know, has always played it safe, has predictable and formulaic storylines promoted under the guise of a few excuses. But what if we were to incentivize Hollywood and other mainstream film industries to take bigger risks, to explore topics that they normally wouldn't, explore topics that, for one reason or the other, the critics have ignored it. And that is the topic of discussion today. Welcome, story lovers, to the Story Dude Show with your host, Jared Dean Winchester, bringing you a fresh set of episodes for the month of April 2025. So let's get right into it, shall we? I hope, because this is April, I hope that someone, somewhere, including in the film business, has April fooled somebody they know. If so, hope it was a good one. But let's bring the focus back to our topic of discussion for this episode, which is, will incentives work when challenging a filmmaker's proposition, a filmmaker's content creation, their ideas, their formulaic thinking, their notion that what sells better is what they believe sells better, is what I'm trying to get at, is the better way to go, or the better choice, is that the safer bet. Because, let's face it, if you're mainstream, you want your content to be commercially viable, and that's the first thing that showrunners and producers actually look at. Is it commercially viable? Is the idea being presented in front of them, is that commercially viable? A lot of times, ideas can be commercially viable, but the problem is, because it does not fit into the narrative, or it does not check the boxes of it being formulaic, predictable, and safe formula, we will always see films that are continuously going downhill, whose filmmakers will always continue to make boy meets girl love interest, glorify it, and then complain that it's the audience's fault that they're not achieving success, or they're not having any success. Which also explains why only 1 out of 10 scripts actually gets made. Now, I'll bet you that out of those scripts, out of those rejected scripts or projects, include risky ideas. What mainstream cinema considers as risky ideas. If so, can incentivizing those risks help? Because I'll be honest with you, when a producer or showrunner says, when you look at a film where two characters are falling in love, or it's a love story, they automatically go to, hey, heteronormative storylines sell better. That's literally their mentality. They cannot, for the love of Zeus, fathom, or they cannot shift their minds into asking themselves, hey, can this risk be worth it? We cannot rely on big players or those once-in-a-lifetime directors or filmmakers that come into the industry, like Peter Jackson, Michael Bay, or Steven Spielberg, or George Lucas. We can't constantly keep relying on those guys to help us take the risk and then have the industry follow through. Because I'll tell you this, I come from Bollywood and Tollywood, and what both of these film industries have done is anytime there is a original movie, like say for instance Bahubali, I guarantee you that there will be 15 different variants, at least 15 different variants of the same movie. But bringing back to my question, will incentives that promote riskier propositions or riskier projects work? I believe so to some level, but here's the problem. It boils down to the level of resistance that you will be receiving or the industry will be engaging in before completely turning around or saying, okay, let's do this, and putting their arms are up and say, okay, let's do this. A good example is when the industry says boy meets girl love stories are what sells best. They really don't understand that that's not what good storytelling is. Sometimes it can be a good storytelling like Bahubali, but heteronormative stories by their very nature, they're predictable. Boy meets girl, boy gets girl, they live happily ever after facing whatever problems in the relationship that they've come to experience, and then boom, story's finished. That's extremely predictable, and I'll give you an example of such formula. 2 words, Nicholas Sparks, follows the same formula, the same problems or obstacles that he gives his characters, set in the same location, and all his stories, just like many, are predictable. Now, can critics also help? Can they also help facilitate the risk-taking? Why not? But you know what? Critics don't do that. They will find anything and everything wrong with your work. And what really happens is, when there is a project that they've heavily criticized, but then that project turns out to be a success, they won't admit that they were wrong. And this is part of my argument where I continuously say or reiterate that critics are always wrong. But I digress. When critics highly praise a film or work and it doesn't turn out well, guess what they do? They blame the audience for it not to be successful. Now, it's a narrative. But I'm going to give you the scenarios. The first scenario is Hollywood will be the easiest to change. Not overnight, but it will be easiest to adapt. Bollywood and Tollywood, on the other hand, because of the cultural differences in India or any other mainstream cinema where there is a cultural influence, they won't do it. They will have heavy backlash. They will have heavy opposition to this. But it will take more time for them to come around. Which is why I propose, yes, financial incentives will be a part of this and they will work, but there should also be other incentives. Even though filmmakers are reluctant, they need to be convinced that the proposition or their investment in a film will be worth it. And how do you achieve that? You have to make them believe. Just like you have to believe in your own characters and in your own storylines. And this is going for screenplay writers or script writers and directors and filmmakers, producers, whoever is involved in the project. Believing in your characters and in your story is key. You have to include as part of the incentive to make them believe it, to make them believe that this will be a good push towards or in the right direction. So, I put it out there for you. This is my question to you. With that being said, do you think mainstream cinema will respond positively or negatively to any incentives offered, financial or otherwise? How will they respond if they were to be challenged to include more LGBT characters, making them the main characters? Will that suffice? If not, why not? Let me know in the comments. With that being said, this is Jared Dean Winchester, also known as the Story Dude. Like, comment, and subscribe. And until I see you again, don't forget to turn that page